Hey, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the audience members for joining us. Welcome to another Q&A for the Decibels Music Film Festival presented by SF Indie Fest. The Decibels Music Film Festival brings films showcasing the diversity of music, the celebration of musicians, their fans, and events. Bring these films both live in person this year and online. Hey, filmmakers from around the world. Thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here. Why don't we just start with an icebreaker? I know who you are, but we're meeting for the first time. Tell me your name, your film, and your involvement in the film, what your role was in the film. And I'll call you out so we don't speak over each other. Brendan, you're on my top left here. Why don't you go first?
Okay. My name's Brandon Lavoie. I made a short film called Nanad Who Plays Ping Pong, and I was the director and editor of the film.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. And then it says Space Rocks, but I know your name's Damien. Damien, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Damien Donnelly, and Space Rocks is a micro documentary, and I was producer on Space Rocks. I'm coming in from Ireland.
Right on. Thank you. And then how about the Fugazi Barber brothers? How about you guys next?
Joe?
My name's Joe Tropea. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. I could not figure out the Zoom. Sorry. I was a director and co-director and co-writer of Fugazi's Barber.
I'm Robert Emmons. I'm here in New Jersey, in Camden, right over the bridge from Philadelphia. So on the East Coast with Joe. I'm the co-creator of Fugazi's Barber along with Joe.
Excellent. Well, all excellent films, enjoyable films, exploring music and how music is in our lives. But how did these films come into your lives? Robert, I'll start with you. And Joe, you guys can kind of collaborate on the answers. How'd you get started? Where did this movie come from?
I'll start off, Joe, and then I'll hand it over, I guess. Our film has an interesting life for us because this is our second film together. Our first partnership worked out so well. We said, let's keep going with it. We made a film called Sickies Making Films, which we had the fortune to screen at SF Indie. It's about the history of film censorship. And at one of the screenings, we were screening it at Big Sky Film Festival. And there was a couple of people down in the front row that were sort of really into the film, laughing the whole time. And then during a Q&A came up and the guys had asked about Joe's last name. And I'll let Joe take it from there.
Huh.
So the question that came from a face I couldn't quite clearly see was, are you any relation to Frank Tropea? And I made a joke that somehow all Sicilians are related one way or another, but no, I did not know him and was not related to him. And the person asking the question ended up being, we found out afterward, it was Brendan Canty from Fugazi. And he basically told us the story that our film kind of tells. He told us later that night at a party. He told us the story, and
I was talking with him, and we didn't realize who he was until at the party. And I'm talking with him, and he was like, "Oh, I played drums in this DC punk band," and I'm like, "Well, what band?" And he's like, "Fugazi's Barber," or Fugazi, and I was like, "Brendan Canty?" I didn't even recognize his hair's all white like mine now. We're all old guys now. And Joe comes over, and at first I was like. Joe was like, immediately, he was like, this is a movie right here. This is a documentary about this barber who cut all these like DC punk guys' hair. I was skeptical at first, but he convinced me that it could be a pretty compelling story.
Jason's frozen.
Oh, I thought he had a pretty intense stare.
But he was
just
Brendan, you're the host now.
Yeah.
He'll pop back in a minute or two.
I guess they're going to edit these.
Oh, absolutely.
Did I cut out, or did my end of the story make it in there?
No, you were there.
Oh,
Made
okay.
it in there.
You might have to repeat it though.
It seemed like Jason was really into it. He was.
I know.
Yeah, no,
I looked over and he was really intensely staring. I was like, all right, he's getting all this.
Yeah.
The power of broadband.
Yeah, I guess if he's the recording body, does that mean the recording stopped? It
Oh no, it's still recording.
Still
It's
says
still
it's recording.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I can see it in the
Top
corner.
left, it tells you, yeah. So it'll happen until the host rejoins or terminates the meeting, it'll record. So
Yeah.
everything is being taken, will be used against you in a court of law. Change your names, please. And then, to protect the innocent. Okay. But that's mad. So you met this dude who's the famous dude.
Yeah.
And he gave you an idea for the story.
Yeah.
So,
Pretty much that simple. And it was just a matter of finding the people.
yeah, no, that's but yeah.
They were there promoting a film that they had made about these inner city chefs in DC. They had him and his partner. They've made a number of documentaries about music, about Wilco, and I don't know if you've seen any. There's pretty good films. So they were friends with the festival director and stuff like that. So we were sort of this was at the party. Our film was nominated for one of the best pictures. So it was like this party, and we're just kind of hobnobbing, didn't know who the heck anybody was. And it just came out. It's kind of that great inorganic kind of idea that comes along your desk that always is pleasurable.
That's cool. I'll switch it over to Brandon as we're waiting for the host to come back. I'll become the
Take
Might as
the
well.
reins, Damien. Take the reins. Nothing better than hearing an Irish guy lead.
We just
lead
keep
the
chatting away here. But Brandon, your movie and the inspiration. I think that's the pitch. Is that it?
Yeah, so the way this all came about is I have a mentor who's another doc filmmaker. Her name's Barbara Koppel. And
hello.
I used to work for her when I lived in New York, and I got a call from her kind of out of the blue, saying that there was an event that needed coverage, and one of her friends was leading the event, and it was this gentleman named Nanad Bach, and it was for a ping pong tournament for people who have Parkinson's. Nanad started an organization called Ping Pong Parkinson's, and it was like their first tournament. This was back in 2019, the fall of 2019. And they just needed event coverage, and they had a little budget for it. So I went up with a few friends, sound person, 2 camera people, and my buddy who produces. And we kind of just shot a bunch of verite footage. And then we filmed one morning at his house, shot an interview with him. In the morning, we shot the interview with him. I kind of realized that like this could be more than just like some event footage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him if I could cut something sort of like a personal project from the footage and see if I could piece something together. And I spent the next month basically just like cutting the interview in a way that like made it a little bit more poetic and a little bit more than just a straightforward event coverage video. And it ended up turning into this short film. And I guess people just connected with Nanad and his story. He's super charismatic. He's got like such a healthy and like optimistic disposition about everything. I think the fact that he has Parkinson's just kind of like, it doesn't define him. It's kind of just a part of him, and he deals with it in the ways that he knows how to, but like playing ping pong has become a huge part of his life. And it was really interesting to be filming these people. They traveled from all around the world. And there was one gentleman in particular who he was wheelchair bound at the event and just shaking terribly. It was really sad. And then as soon as he so people had to help him out of his wheelchair. And as soon as he got up to play ping pong, like he turned into like an Olympic level athlete. And he was like, as soon as his muscles activated and had that muscle memory for getting in position and hitting the ball, he was just like, he was nimble as can be. And he fell down a couple times, and I think like that was another part of filming where I didn't want to include that in the film because there's no reason to, but it was just like a really emotional event to be filming these people doing all this stuff, and there was a ton of determination involved. It was just like a really special thing to be a part of. So it ended up turning into something entirely different that I'm really grateful for, and that's the story.
Brilliant.
And this is part of Decibels, right? Is music a big, or audio, a sound, a big part of? How's that working?
I should probably mention that. So he was like, prior to getting Parkinson's disease, he was like a world-renowned musician for his kind of music, and it's sort of like, I guess, global music, I guess you could call it. He's Croatian, but has played all around the world. Played with U2 and like all these different bands, and for Princess Diana, there's some footage of him playing for her. You know, I think the music aspect of the film, it doesn't play a huge role. It's just the fact that he was a musician, and if you can imagine, I don't think there's a worse ailment to suffer from than Parkinson's as a musician, especially as someone who plays piano and guitar. And those were, you know, that and singing are the two things that he played mainly. So, you know, he decided once he got Parkinson's, he decided to stop playing publicly. But that has since changed. And I think along with playing ping pong, he's built his confidence to get back in front of people and play. And yeah, it's pretty inspiring. But yeah, that's the music angle of it, is, you know, he was a big musician, specifically in Croatia and overseas, and suddenly he's like a ping pong all-star. So
it's remarkable.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Damien, why don't you tell us about Space Rocks?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
So what I'm hearing from just, you know, from yourselves there is this human connection. You know, there's, you know, the stories of, you know, that gentleman and stuff like that. So Space Rocks, big space fan, big music fan, 1970s kid, MTV, very much space and isolation, the soundtrack to life. You know, we have, you know, Spotify, we have music that kind of accompanies, you know, our everyday. I could probably ask a question of the group here. If I named a particular song of a band that you're fond of, you could probably tell me where you were when that song came out, or what concert you remember. So NASA over the years have used music to connect with the International Space Station, with the astronauts, and they do a call out. So if I was to give a wake up call, they actually do it. The celebrities like Paul McCartney, Beyonce, U2, they actually would do a holler up, say hello, you know, good morning, and they, you know, play a track. So there's hundreds of tracks that have been used over the years, like Fly Me to the Moon, the likes of REM, Michael Stipe. So I said in Space Rocks, let's mix music, space, and, you know, the human journey, because, you know, we're all on a journey where the destination ends up is a different story. So in a micro doc, literally pulled all those elements together, and it's actually narrated by Morgan Space Dude, kind of space god. Morgan Freeman wasn't available, so there's actually a sound alike, and we had great fun because it's about music, and music and clearing music is a bit of a, how would you say, a minefield. So now this is NASA public domain footage, but you have to be cognizant of, you know, the music rights. So you hear REM, but do you? Because there's a sound alike band from Germany who actually do the track. So there's those kind of elements, but it's very much, as Bono says, making the impossible possible. That's kind of, you know, that, you know, when you set your mind to something, we have to go further. We need to go onto, you know, the moon and to Mars. So the playlist is going to get much, much longer. And it was it was done during kind of the lockdown. It was done at home. It's all existing footage. It's putting all those elements together. So to produce something, they come up with the writing of it as well, and whatever you want to say, directing of footage, but pulling it all together. A friend edited it, and it actually sound mixed in Nashville. So we had a gentleman in Nashville who actually did the sound mix to make sure, because it has to sound right. It's that, you know, space rocks. It's meant to be a music homage. So yeah, that's Space Rocks in a nutshell.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I dropped out for a while there.
Yeah, we
But-
we just kept going with
We kept
talking about how
going.
we came to our films.
Right on. Perfect. And so I hope I don't repeat any questions or whatnot. Is there anything I'm interrupting that someone else needs to answer before I ask a question?
I think we got through how sort
You
of
guys
this
are
film
awesome.
came to be.
You guys are awesome. Maybe I should just have you continue that way. But real quick, as a filmmaker myself, several of you use found footage, if you will. I'm curious how you got access to that. Like Space Rocks, you know, where'd you get the stock footage, the found footage, and then Fugazi's Barber also has some great home video. So Damien,
Yeah.
where'd you get your?
Yeah. So NASA has a large archive, and actually we took part in CineSpace. They run a film festival competition, and we were finalists. So you know, you get access if you go to like nasa.gov. They have like images and gallery and audio. So as long as you you know, don't claim that, you know, a NASA element that's beyond belief, you know, they'll allow you to use it. The stock footage, Pond5, you know, kind of the online you know, websites that you have. But as I said, the music part was the kind of the hardest bit. You're making a micro doc with music, but trying to clear some of the elements. So the likes of REM, that's actually a German sound. They're sound like band. They actually have the same kind of style as REM, and that got licensed that way. But again, it was the challenge to. But there are kind of archives out there. There are kind of public, you know, repositories. But just make sure that you have the rights, that you're not.
And how about Fugazi's brother? Lots of great concert footage, if you will.
Yeah. Fortunately, so Fugazi on YouTube, there's a Fugazi live show archive, which also is on a great resource is archive.org, you know, which is a Creative Commons site that has a lot of the archival footage, but a lot of it we came upon, you know, found on YouTube, and you know, people who posted this footage from back in the day, and you know, you just sort of write these YouTube accounts and see, you know, what you can use or not. So YouTube was a really good source, as well as archive.org for a lot of that footage.
Got it. Brandon, do you have found footage of yours? I can't remember.
Yeah. I think Nana just like sent, because I like mixed media. I think like every project I've worked on has some sort of mixed media in it. And I asked Nanad afterwards, once the edit had started to take shape and it was, you know, more than like an event. It's like, do you have any footage of when you played music, or like when you were playing these concerts? And he just sent me a YouTube link, and I think the max resolution was like 480 or something. It was like really low. So I think the biggest challenge was not so much clearing it, because he owned it. It was just his link. The biggest challenge was stylizing the found footage in a way where it could play as, it wouldn't be too jarring in the edit to cut to 480 footage. So I think I ended up getting some of these like film filters and just like throwing some Super 8 or like 16 millimeter filters over it, and squishing everything, cropping everything to 4:3, and
yeah.
it just.
And did you guys have to get musicians or band members kind of blessing or permission, like Nanad's when you made your movies? Did you have to have them watch the final to get approval?
I'll let Joe tell our interesting story of our music.
We did not have to get final approval. I spent some time on the phone with Ian Mackay. who we wanted to interview. And his attitude was that talking about hair was just boring. And then he went on to tell me 2 fucking hilarious stories about his hair, none of which we could use in the film. But he basically gave us the Discord approval. And our deal is such that as long as we don't get paid, they don't need to get paid. So that's kind of our handshake over the phone deal. We're not expecting to get paid. So
I don't show characters the film until it's done. And there has to be like some level of trust, like for me to be doing it in the first place. So I think that initial conversation has to be one that's like carefully navigated as to like what the goals are. Obviously, when it's someone's personal story, like profiting off of that is sticky, and that was never part of like Nanad and the short that we made. So he knew that I was doing it for the right reasons, and he's definitely a vocal person and like wanted his story told. So I think there was just that level of like understanding and
Yeah.
If I might too, much like in with Brandon and his, like, we're fortunate that our film takes place in a very specific period from the the 80s to the early 90s. So this is like the VHS period, like the video period. So any footage that we got that wasn't quite high res, I can make it easily look like VHS because it blends right into that era. So we had this great cheat built into the aesthetic of the film that we use throughout the whole thing to place it. Even the non-VHS stuff, some of that is made to look like that because that's kind of the period we're covering. So we had a built-in cheat for not great footage.
Yeah. Damien, did you need any permission from anyone for?
Well, I did submit it. It was submitted to the Cine Space competition in NASA, so they do a process of review, But to be honest, no, because it's public domain. I was conscious of that. Made sure that in the credits that everything is credited, back to the reference points. So if there's any conversation, but no, there was one reference to Robin Williams in it because he was involved with saying about in the shuttle era and stuff like that. But no, there was like it was clean. So I've never met the funny thing is doing the music. I've never met any of the artists. So again, it was when it's kind of virtual homage, if you want to say. It's like being a VJ on MTV, and that's a vibe within it as well because there's pop-up video where there's these pop-ups that explain bits that are going on. Right. And really cool story that this is how stuff happens by coincidence. There's a gentleman from the Dubliners passed away. He was a famous flute player. So he just passed away in the last week or so. But there's a picture in Space Rocks of an astronaut with his flute in space, right? It was actually in space for 6 months, okay? And it turns out that his son was a rocket scientist for NASA, and that's where Paddy Maloney is your man's name, and like he's famous around the world. He's
from the Chieftains, right?
Yeah, Chieftains. Sorry, I said the Dubliners. Yeah, Chieftains. Yeah. Apology. The Chieftains. Apologies. Yes, absolutely, the Chieftains, and he's a legend. So the flute, his instrument that he played, went to space for 6 months, and in Space Rocks, coincidentally, there's a picture of the astronaut with the actual flute. Now, that was not designed in any way. It's just pure coincidence. And that's what I love about these projects and the energy of the conversations we've had about, taking the impossible, the elements of, the chance meeting that creates the story, that creates the interaction. And there's that human touch. We all love to kind of be able to say, oh, yes, I was involved in that, or I helped that, or I remember being in. So yeah, the Chieftains, apologies, I guess. get in trouble at home.
You mentioned pop-up kind of videos and stuff. Fugazi Brothers or Fugazi Barber, great animation, great pop-up animations as well. Really love that aspect of it. What made you decide to incorporate that? How did you go about it? Really provides a nice texture. You have a nice texture in your whole film.
Thank you. I just want to jump in. So, we knew so one of the sort of catalyst to the story is the granddaughter of the barber, of the namesake of the film. And there were these sort of great moments that she was recounting that we're trying to figure out a way to show these on screen. And in our last film, we sort of used sort of cheat animations. They were almost like animatics, like sort of animated storyboards that we used for our last film. And we had talked about how can we take it up a notch. And a friend of mine is an animator. He's sort of a flat 2D animator. He uses, even though he uses 3D animation program, he still animates in this flat 3D, combining both After Effects and 3D animation. His name's Steve McMaster. And so we approached him and asked if he'd be interested, and he was all in. And he just has a really great knack for interpreting dialogue in really creative ways, I think, that work for the film. And we sort of gave him run on how to interpret these dialogue sequences, and pretty thrilled with how he visualized those.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then Brandon, how about you? How much, maybe I'll ask this of all filmmakers, how much did music influence the actual kind of pacing or structure, editing of your film? I mean, how much did you bring it in during the process of post-production or whatnot?
For mine in particular, I hadn't received any of Ninad's music, and I have a problem personally when I edit that I get really attached to the music I temp with. I think everyone has that problem. And like in most cases, I can't afford to license it. But I found some like pretty great tracks on, I don't know if I can like plug them, but I guess on Music Bed, I found some great tracks, and they just fit. And that was kind of it for me. I mean, outside of that, I don't think any of Ninad's music is actually in the film, which I think if he had his way, he would want to change that. But yeah, that's just the way it worked out.
And Damien, how about you playing DJ? Did your music influence your editing or your work process?
Well, kind of when I was kind of deciding, very much again, we kind of put some temp music down, and that kind of became, the de facto, because then trying to clear rights and bits and pieces. And the whole thing was to kind of, ensure that it had a pace so that it, moves towards, there's hope. We're going, going places, we're going further, we're going to Mars and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I was also conscious that I didn't have a big checkbook to go to record companies and ask them for rights of wonderful songs by Beyonce and Paul McCartney and all that. They say hi, they say hello, but we have to cut away then. But yeah, and then I did get Bono and the boys. I did get the local guys in, so he's as a line. So yeah, it was kind of the music you hear is to build the pace, because I think people hopefully will connect with the different elements to it, and they have their own kind of, favorites of music and probably artists and stuff like that. But it's just the sheer variety, the variety of life, the variety of, of the music. So it's interesting when you're trying to create something.
Yes,
it can be there.
And Joe, how about you? I mean, I do like also, you guys let your music play out, or the music play out. You're generous with a lot of times music documentaries, whatever, will just shortchange the songs, and you don't get a flavor or taste of it. And you guys let it play out a little bit. I like that.
Well, thanks, because I feel like I feel the opposite, but I'm glad to hear someone say otherwise. Personally, I would have loved to have had more lungfish in our film, but we got a little bit in there. So yeah, thank you. That's
Well,
surprising.
because how much music and how much story. Like a lot of times for the general audience, if you slow down the story, if you will, playing the footage, you lose attention, right?
Right, right.
So it's a
We
fine balance, and you
we
guys,
also had, and Joe has a great story about this. Like we knew, music was at the very heart of the story, so it was always going to be part of it.
right?
So it's this film about these sort of particular set of political punk bands in DC, but then it's also about this barber and his Italian heritage. So uh, there's a blend. I don't know if you know, in the film, there's all this sort of discord punk music blended with all this old school Italian, like folk
Yeah.
music, which I'll let Joe pick up from
I
there.
forgot about that part. Yeah, so that's actually my uncle, whom I never met, but back in Sicily, had a recording career, played the recorder. And so that music is all from 45s that he put out that I have.
Wow.
So I think the funnest thing for me was designing the outro music, where we combined his music with Fugazi's barber's granddaughter's band, Body Cop. Mashing their stuff up was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. That was nice. Well, we only have a couple more moments for questions here. So what's next for all you guys? What's your next project? Joe, I'll continue with you and go around the room.
Bobby and I are kicking a few ideas around. One involves an archive thief. That's the one we need to be working on more than our other ideas. That one will be titled "The Truth is Fireproof."
Cool. And then what about Robert? Do you want to add or?
No, I mean, yeah, that's where we're sort of spending most of our time. If I can give a little bit of a dab, it's about archive. It's about archive thieves, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Damien, how about you? What are you working on?
After Space Rocks took some crazy sounds from NASA and created a Spotify, the Space Dude character that has a music video about solar orbit, about the sun. And it's actually a mix of all crazy, creepy sounds from NASA. That's up on Spotify at the moment. And my life as a piece of space junk. So that's, it's a bit morbid, somebody said to me, because what happens to space junk? What happens to the junk? That's complete, and that'll be kind of winging your way. And then there's a horror movie that a buddy is writing, wants to direct. So we probably have creepy sounds and music and stuff. But yeah, just keep on doing stuff. That's the main thing. Just keep making stuff.
Brandon, what about you? What's next for you?
I'm currently in like the throes of festival stuff with another film I made right after Nanad called The Both of Me. So we're screening that. It's online already, but still doing some festivals. Writing my first narrative, which is fun and
daunting.
hard. It's a completely different world. And I have another doc in development about a gentleman out here who used to smuggle drugs for the Colombian cartel and got caught and turned his life around by starting programs for ex-gang members. So that's
Cool.
That's what I'm working on.
Cool. And so what is Nanad up to nowadays? How's he doing? What's his current state?
I think when COVID first hit, he was definitely being super careful. He lives in a house with 3 doctors as well, so they were constantly at risk to be exposed. He has a small studio in upstate New York that he spends a lot of time at to kind of like almost quarantine in a way. But I think, everyone's vaccinated. He's still scheming. He always has new things going on, writing new music, playing ping pong every day.
Is Ping Pong Parkinson still active and going?
Yeah. There was definitely a hiatus during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. But I think now that everyone's getting a little bit more comfortable being out and being around other people and taking precaution, I think I think there. I believe they just had another tournament.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Brendan, or yeah, I forget your name. Damien, what's going on with NASA Music? Are they still promoting or incorporating music into their programs? Do you know?
With the shuttle program, they stopped at that point. It's actually a good question. I must actually ask, what's going on. But I know there's an archive. There's a guy who archived the hundreds of tracks, and I mean hundreds. There's kind of like a big catalog. Having said that, they're very much, the media thing. This whole, like, getting films out with it.
Is that golden record still floating out there?
Yes, absolutely. The Voyager, yes, that is still. What they do encourage, and astronauts do bring their desert island discs with them. They do bring music to space, for the downtimes they have. So it was very much a connection thing with ground station and up there, because music has that power. But the Voyager, that disc is still spinning. It's probably the longest golden disc ever.
And then Fugazi Barber team. What about your players? Is that barber shop still there, Joe? And what's going on with the other players?
I think it's safe to say that the barber Frank is getting in as much golf as possible. I'm sure his barber chair is still set up in his basement, but the shop is long gone. But yeah, he's probably still cutting families' heads in his basement whenever he's asked to.
Cool. And how about the granddaughter and some of the band members? What are they?
It was as we were making the film, it was tough to organize with Brendan, because his band, the Mesthetics, they were really playing a lot at that time. And then he was drumming for MC5, I think. He was a drummer for them for a whole tour. So trying to coordinate him to get him back into Frank's chair in the basement was tough. But he was playing in Mesthetics with Joe Lally from Fugazi's Barber as well. So, but fortunately, we were able to nail him down for a day.
Right.
And I think the Kiki, the barber's granddaughter, has finished college, or is darn close to finishing college since we started. So
cool.
Is that on the West Coast?
Well, how about last question? Any parting words you'd like to say to the audiences or filmmakers? Brendan, I'll start with you. Any plugs? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, just always push, get your film finished. Like, don't let anyone divert you. Don't let no's divert you. Just, push through.
Pursue your passion. And Damien, how about you? Any final parting words?
I would say, make the impossible possible, and onwards and upwards.
Right on. Robert, how about you?
I get what I always say to my students, and this is stories sort of kind of always keep your eye out for the story that presents itself, right? I mean, we always get wrapped up in looking for stories, but sometimes they come across your vision quickly.
Yeah.
And they're right in front of you. So look for that story that's right in front of you is what I tell my students all the time.
Right on. And Joe, last but not least.
I can't really top that. Just want to say, Brendan, Damien, Jason, it's great speaking with you guys today, and I look forward to seeing your movies. And keep on keeping on.
That's right. And I just want to say I'm grateful for you guys for being here, taking the time. Congratulations on completing your films, getting in the film festival, and good luck on your future endeavors and wherever filmmaking may take you. Hey guys, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And check out more films at the Decibels Music Film Festival. All right, guys, signing off.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thank you.